Welcome to the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel and to our live stream Q&A Part 1. We are getting our weekend started over here, 6:19, and better late than never. I will be answering questions about history and social studies for the next hour or so bring up a topic, comment, or question about history from all over the world in all different time periods, and I'll be happy to discuss it with you here at the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel, where we do history in a friendly, neighborly manner 24/7, 365, or 366 days a year. Like and subscribe for plenty of more history content, short, live, and long form. And yes, please ask any questions you would like, drop them in the chat, and get them answered by a historian. And if you enjoy my answers, if you agree or disagree but find it interesting, again, liking and subscribing always helps. This weekend, we've got our Q&A today. We've got our second one at 3 p.m. That's our new Saturday time. And then, of course, we also have our Sunday live stream lecture at 4 p.m. about the communism in Asia, the history of the rise of communism in Asia. So we're going to talk about Mongolia, China, North Korea, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. Lots to talk about on Sunday at live stream. I'm really looking forward to. We do our live stream lectures every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern, and YouTube voted, and that's what YouTube wanted. So if you want to become a friendly neighborhood historian, it's as easy as subscribing. There are memberships available for extra bonuses and perks. But yeah. Let me see here. Good, nice historical background. What do we want in the background here? Ah, yes. This is a portrait of Japan in the 1860s. This is the Meiji Restoration, when Japan, led by its emperor Meiji, worked tirelessly to become as industrialized as it could relative to the European empires that surrounded it. So, yes, good evening. Great to see everybody. Hope everybody is having a great start to their weekend, and I really appreciate you guys choosing to spend it with me here at the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel. So, questions, topics, comments, things you want to discuss, put them in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer them in a friendly, neighborly manner. Let me see here. And konnichiwa. Yes, this is it's kind of hard to see this background, though. It's a nice background. It's Japan in the 1860s. Let me see. All right, this one's cool. This is samurai armor. This is bona fide samurai armor. The samurai were the equivalent of the medieval knights in Japan, living like with the chivalry code, with the code of Bushido, bringing honor and glory to their various daimyos and warlords and shoguns, and of course the emperor. Ultimately, through the centuries, the samurai became the elite fighting warrior in all of Japanese history, and perhaps in all of Asian history, if you really think about it. But yeah, did Mao Zedong explicitly reject religion? I mean, most communist governments are a rejection of religion, or have in their efforts a rejection of religion, and believe that the state should be the ones to handle people's religious affairs. So yeah, I would say he did at least implicitly reject it. And you've got the little red book with plenty of comments there. Thank you, Derek. It's great to have you here. Hars is here. Please check out Harsinet's channel, where he does edits of famous American presidents and moments in American history. So if you want edits, if you want short form content and quick history explanations, you go to me. If you want your edits, you go to Harsinet, and he's got all your U.S. history edits for you guys. So yeah. Let's see here. Okay. What else do we want to discuss? What other questions do we have about history and social studies? What are the four olds in the Chinese Revolution? I don't know. Off the top of my head, I actually do not know. Would you agree that the forced collapse of the British control of Levant, Iraq, and the smaller Gulf states was a mistake? Sure, why not? I love talking about Chinese history. I love talking about Asian history. I don't remember what the four olds in the Chinese Revolution were. The Chinese Revolution depends on what you mean by the Chinese Revolution, because there's a revolution that overthrows the empire in 1911, the fall of the Qing dynasty, and then there's the rise of the communists fighting in the Civil War on and off, bracketed by the last World War, what you call World War II, and I believe is World War III. So, what do you know about Mao Zedong's revolution, the communist one? Well, the communist movement was the underdogs throughout much of the 1930s. In fact, it nearly fell apart between 1933 and 1935 when they were forced to make a 1,500-mile retreat, kind of going in a circle back northwest and then to the east from the south of China towards Manchuria. And this is called the Long March, where the Chinese Communist Revolution almost completely collapsed, but Mao's leadership was able to basically unite them and unify all of the forces to continue on their quest. But it seemed like the Chinese Communist Party was defeated. It seemed like the Chinese Communist movement was at its end and all of that. And then, of course, we have the real, and we have what really helped the Chinese Communists was their patriotism in fighting in the World War against the Japanese invaders. Also helped greatly by their efforts to, where they were basically supported by the British and the Americans as useful to the Allies. And Mao's willingness to work with the peasantry, which the vast majority of Chinese people were peasants, rather than oppress them brutally, although he would oppress them brutally very, very soon, like the Kuomintang or the nationalists, gave him an edge. He was not only a war hero who had fought to maintain Chinese independence and defeat the Japanese invaders, but he was also far more interested in helping the peasants than he was in dominating them. And this gave him and his revolutionaries more and more fighting men and more manpower and resources after the World War ended. And this eventually led to the end of the Chinese Civil War in 1949, with the Kuomintang being defeated and fleeing to Taiwan, and the People's Republic of China being established by Mao Zedong. So there's a little bit of history on the Communist Revolution in China and how Mao Zedong achieved power against all odds. 15 years after it seemed like it was all lost, Mao was completely in power over the largest nation in the world. Why are there so many Chinese, but other Asian ethnicities and countries are so much smaller? China has a lot of land, the control of the Yangtze and Yellow Rivers, powerful imperial dynasties in the past, like the Yuan, the Song, the Tang, and the Ming, and the Qing were all extraordinarily successful at conquering large swathes of land and absorbing them into China. Basically, every Chinese imperial dynasty from the 7th century onward greatly expanded China's territorial holdings in large parts of Asia, enabling them to control a lot of the resources and manpower of most of East Asia, but they were never able to fully control Japan. They never really successfully invaded Japan or conquered Japan, but they were often interested in doing it. Look at Kublai Khan and the Mongols. When they ruled over China, they sought to attack Japan, but were turned back by typhoons and then by the brilliance of the samurai fighters who vanquished them in combat. Do you think that the opening of China in 1972 was a mistake? Not necessarily. It made geopolitical sense for Richard Nixon to turn the Chinese against the Soviets. Seeing the deterioration of Soviet-communist relationships in the 1960s and 70s, and the fact that Mao still ran the country with an iron fist, prompted Nixon to create a divide that eventually became permanent and allowed China to open up more to the West and to normalize relations. Red Guards destroyed temples, books, artworks, and historical sites. Well, that's part of the Cultural Revolution. Mao was pretty merciless throughout much of his dictatorship, much of his tenure in power, which lasted about 30 years. Based off history, where do you think Korea is going? Think they will unite North and South? If there is a major geopolitical war that includes fighting in Asia, the Middle East, and Europe, which would mean World War IV, what everyone will call World War III because they don't know about the 7 Years' War being the First World War, then I expect that will involve some sort of fighting between North and South Korea. That will probably be the main front in the East Asian side of the war, and I expect that will probably be the determining factor. Now, whether or not the war in Iran will escalate into World War, or there'll be another setting for that, remains to be seen. If that doesn't happen, then I don't expect the Koreas to reunite at any point soon. What half of Chinese did they start making the Wall of China on? Well, the Great Wall of China has been added to and built up over time. It doesn't start as the Qing dynasty under Shi Huangdi as the main progenitors of the building of the Great Wall of China in at the end of the 3rd century BC, so about 215, 220 BC. And obviously, the point of the Great Wall of China is to stop from invaders. So you stop this area that is susceptible to attack from invaders, and then all of a sudden you have another area that's susceptible to attack from invaders, so you expand the Great Wall. So different imperial dynasties like the Han and the Tang go back and add to the Great Wall of China as the centuries go on, which is eventually how we get, how long is it, 1,800 miles or something like that? Basically protecting them from the Mongols and the Huns and all sorts of different, usually nomadic invaders from the northwest. China has always had a very, very xenophobic relationship with foreigners, and a fear of greater invasion despite their large amount of resources, manpower, and land. Is China a democracy? Not right now. Did Chuck Norris really die? He just had his birthday. That's crazy. 7-Day War. Can you dive a little deeper? Do you mean the 7-day or the 6-day war? Because there's different wars with numbers. I don't know the Lobster War. Happy Friday and weekend. Thanks for everything. It's my pleasure, King Doopy. It's great to have you. Please like and subscribe. This is the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel. How many students you lecture? Well, right now we're at 37. We'll see how many more people show up. And if I haven't answered your question, I promise to try to get there as soon as possible. What do you think about AI churning out history content? Reckon could replace real historians in the classroom. Nothing can replace me. Nothing can replace what I do. Nothing can replace the historian's interpretation of human events and the ability to create connections across vast areas of land and vast centuries. The job of the historian is to tell the truth and to make connections. And AI might be able to spurn out a lot of historical information, but it will only consult the experts who are human when it comes to interpreting the actual events of the past. Other than that, its interpretations are extraordinarily bland, and I find them to be very, very lacking. The real debates that we have in history are not about the facts, but about our interpretation of those facts, what we call historiography. Let me see. We've spent over $9 trillion and lost thousands of Americans for Israel. When will it be ended? When will be enough? Open question. Galapagosodic, go back and watch my live stream lecture from last Sunday. I'm not talking about Israel. I'm just not talking about this issue. Horace, please put in the link to the live stream lecture from last Sunday. If people want to hear my thoughts on this whole Israel thing, on the Jew thing, on what everybody in the internet is talking about and obsessed with because they're morons, maybe Gala isn't, but please put in the chat. What is your opinion on Iran war? Trump's a bum. I'm not. Give me a super chat if you want to hear my perspective. A historian's. This is a history channel. I talk about history. If you want to hear my perspective on actual geopolitics from a historical lens, which I'm willing to give me a super chat. Why does your hair look green? It's my green screen in the back for my that I've been trying to use for my laptop, but I haven't gotten set up yet. So I do have a green screen. This is a green screen background that I'm already using, but yeah, that's why my hair looks green. Did you know that today is Nowruz, the Persian New Year? Well, that's an interesting time, right when the U.S. says that the war is about to end. Religious ritual war. All religious leaders want it. You can be very non-religious and want war, by the way. What stopped Chinese to conquer the world by sea in the 1400s by huge ships? After Zheng He died and the treasure fleets ended, legalized, I'm sure you're familiar with that, the Chinese started looking more inward. The Ming dynasty became extraordinarily isolationist. The change of Ming emperor and the end of Zheng He's treasure fleet and the exacting of tribute in the South China Sea and the Indian Ocean eventually prompted the Chinese, again, to look inward, and the exploration that probably would have led them to the Americas came to a halt. But leaders are all religious. No, that's not true. Hitler and Stalin were not religious, and look at what they did. Thank you, Derek, for the super chat. Really appreciate you, and we're very glad to have you on the channel. Derek, is there anything you want me to discuss or analyze? If you want me to go into a lot of detail about a particular historical topic, or you want me to give a historical perspective on a religious or political issue, a super chat is always helpful. And Harsh, did you put in the link to the live stream lecture? Because some people want to know about my opinion about Israel, and that's what I'm going to say. Sure, they were, just not openly. No, they were not. Communists are not religious. I have a lot of people on this channel who hate religion and say religion is at fault for wars. Religion has been at fault for wars. Secularism has been too. It's just how people are. So, anyways, other questions. Thank you, and thank you also, Emir, for the super chat. Really appreciate it. I'm glad you liked it a lot, Derek. Did you watch the live stream lecture on the whole, where I basically got through this whole, wow, we got 3 super chats in a row. Thank you, Wild, longtime moderator. And if you want to become a member, you get your own emoji, you get bonus content, all of that helps. You don't achieve power without being in a cult, in an S cult. Okay, well, I'm achieving power, and I'm not in an S cult. Let me see here. Most people have no idea what communism is. They just think it's a bad word or insult. There is a level, Sam Salamander, of bogeymanning in the United States about communism, turning communism into something far worse than it actually, not far worse than it actually is, but misinterpreting what it is and not actually representing or explaining the ideas carefully. The U.S. government was right in many of its ways to fear communism and its pervasive influence in Eastern Europe, East Asia, and other parts of the world. I'll be discussing this more during the live stream lecture on Sunday. There was a lot of reason to fear communism. Communism is really terrible in many of its elements and expressions. But the U.S. didn't do. But the U.S. just kind of made it the bogeyman, didn't explain anything, and through propaganda and manipulation, tried to demonize anyone to the left as a communist. And that's why we have the witch hunts of McCarthyism and things like that in the 1950s. So the meteorite falling in the sea, drowning all those ships, making them stop is a myth. I don't know what you're talking about. Can you join the Ooga Booga tribe? If the Ooga Booga tribe joins me, then I'll join the Ooga Booga tribe. Stalin was openly non-religious, just like all classic communist leaders. In fact, he and the Bolsheviks were actively anti-religious until World War II. Persecution of Jews, Christians, and Muslims in the Soviet Union was extraordinarily common. The confiscation of religious iconography and resources in order to fund the civil war against the White Army was something the Bolsheviks never hesitated to do. The defrocking of religious leaders, them being arrested and thrown into gulags, was quite common as well. Let me see here. Have you seen Tucker's latest podcast with that Chinese professor? Would love to get your perspective on it, if possible. I don't try to pay attention to a lot of what Tucker Carlson says because I think he doesn't know much about how history works. I think putting Daryl Cooper on a pedestal was an absolute blunder, and I don't think he cares. I haven't listened to it. I'll have to listen to it. I really don't want to talk about Tucker Carlson because it's too close to the politics issue. But from what I have seen, Tucker Carlson is madly ignorant about history. The idea of, I heard him interviewed, and he was talking about how, well, it's bad to kill people in war. And I'm like, duh. Like, everybody knows this. Like, Plato was writing about this 3,500 years ago. Yeah, everybody gets it. Fighting and killing people in war is bad. I'm glad you have a TK, transitional kindergarten. You're not even in kindergarten level of understanding of human nature. I just find it to be insulting and, what's the word? Not gaslighting, but grandstanding on the worst level. So, he asked a historian. Okay, interesting. Yeah, if you want, my Tucker Carlson impression though is spot on. Everybody loves it here, except Tars. And their priests said enough with the world conquering. Okay, I don't know what you mean by that legalized intellect. Why did we not listen to Washington about political parties? Because Washington, many people were like, okay, George, move on. Washington lived in a different world of understanding. Washington was not a political theorist. Madison understood when he wrote the Federalist Papers that factions and divisions were going to happen. And again, Derek and Amir, I really appreciate having you here and the Super Chats. You guys are the best. So listening to Washington about a lot of things went haywire. Foreign intervention, political parties. A lot of the founders believed that it was inevitable. I think it's more of an inevitability to create political parties when you have people fighting all the time. Washington wasn't opposed to political dissension. What he was opposed to was people deciding to create a sort of tribalism. But I just think it's just common to human nature to be tribalistic, and I think politics is extraordinarily tribalistic. So as much as I love George Washington, I absolutely do, and I think he's right in theory, I just don't think it's practical to exist in a political front and not have political parties. I think he would have loved for it to happen, but that was not something that could have ever come to the front. It happened in the French Revolution, it happened in the American Revolution, and it happened in the Glorious Revolution of Great Britain. So somebody was saying they wanted to hear my Tucker Carlson impression. Well, that's obvious. Everybody knows that. And if they don't know it, they're lying to you. Like, in every single way, we just can't believe this as Americans. It's just wrong. There you go. I'll stop. I have a question. During colonial era, China and East Asia were never colonized. So why that region was so important for the West? So much so we say Asian people think of East Asia first. That's a great question. There is a Orientalism where we don't think of the Middle East or India as Asia, but Asians are considered from the Orient, which were previously called Oriental, people from Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, Thailand, China, Mongolia, North and South Korea, and Japan, Taiwan as well. So those groups of people are considered to be Asian, East Asian, although people from Bhutan, the Bhutanese, or is it Bhutanese? I don't know what they call them. People from Bhutan, people from, Nepal, the Nepalese, the Pakistanis. These are all Asians. Technically, Southwestern Asia is the Middle East. The Middle East is technically on the continent of Asia. So, anyways, my point being, those areas were colonized by the West, not in totality. But the spheres of influence and the colonization efforts and the hegemony that the British had over China was pretty precipitously strong. The spheres of influence that the French, the Germans, the Americans, and the Japanese all tried to carve up by the beginning of the 20th century, which led to the Boxer Rebellion, were really strong. China was definitely colonized, more culturally than politically. Japan chose to become like the West in order to avoid colonization because they knew they couldn't withstand it. And Mongolia has just been always surrounded by mountains and no one's ever really able to get to it. However, as you will learn on Sunday, the Mongolians were the first to become communist in Asia before the Chinese, the North Koreans, or the Vietnamese. Southeastern Asia was colonized by the French. The British never took Thailand, but they took Singapore and Malaysia. And Thailand, through its brilliance, was able to avoid European colonization. So why do we think of Oriental people from the Orient, as all Asians? Well, it's because we have a very Western way of looking at that, and because of that, we look at the places of East Asia that are not as colonized as representing the Asians. But technically, people from Saudi Arabia are Asian. The Democratic Republican Party went against the Federalists about the same issues we have now: big versus small government. That's true. You wouldn't lie to us about being a saint or a bigot, would you? No. So how do you feel about satirical candidates that run for office? I think it's funny. I think it's interesting, and I think it's a mirror held up to the culture to get people to look at what's actually happening. Let me see. Yeah, the obviously thing. Yeah, obviously. I mean, obviously you're right. That's how you do a Tucker Carlson impression. You have to say obviously, because obviously everybody knows that, and if they don't know it, they're lying to you. I just don't have the very dismissive, condescending laugh that he does. And great to see you, GK, one of my favorite people. You're knocking Tucker for having basic empathy. He's not claiming to have enlightened or even original thought. He says those things because he's clearly a certain nation doesn't value human life, genocide and whatnot. Well, Winston Smith, which I love that name, go back and watch my live stream lecture from last Sunday, because I went into all of these topics, and I don't like talking about it anymore. I really don't. Because I know what you're talking about, and you're beating around the bush because you play the victim, and you think, oh, if I criticize this nation will shut me down, which is nonsense. It's stupid. It's always been stupid. There's no place in the Middle. There's only, if you want free speech in the Middle East, that's the one country you should go to. But you don't care about that. As for Tucker Carlson, yeah, having basic empathy is good. It's good to have empathy. I'm glad Tucker Carlson has empathy. I'm also horrified that a man who prides himself as an expert on political and geopolitical issues thinks that he has decided to grandstand about basic empathy and abandon any sort of critical thinking just so that he can sound empathetic and, killing people is bad. Civilians should never die in war. I'm sorry, but you don't know what war is. This is ridiculous. This man would have been standing up in 1940 and saying, well, we have no business fighting the Germans. We have no business. I don't even know if what they're doing is wrong, or if it's really happening at the level that we think it is. I mean, it might be, but what's my business if they're killing a bunch of Jews? It's the same attitude, folks. Same attitude. Thank you, Derek, for the super chat. I'm assuming that's for the Tucker Carlson impression. Let me see. It's not this is not a debate, Winston. This is my channel, the Friendly Neighborhood History channel. You have come to my channel in order to learn about history and social studies. At least I hope you have, unless you're just a troll. But yeah, you have to remember we're not equals here. Remember that you said that Iranian history is important for Americans to know about. I'm curious. That was what I wrote on my Substack. If you want to read my articles, please go check that out. Hars, please put those links in the chat. I'm curious if there was one thing you would want people to know about Iran, and what would it be? That Iran is not Persia and Persia is not Iran, but you can't tell the story of Iran without Persia. Persia is a different entity and should be treated as a different entity, and that the term Shah, which we use so geopolitically normatively now, is actually a term that goes back 3,500 years, or at least 3,000. I don't even take modern politics seriously anymore. A lot of people don't. I don't want to be rude, but maybe if you had family who were under bombs, you would not minimize civilian deaths so much. Oh, that's nonsense. That's just absolutely stupid. I'm sorry. Are you kidding me? I am not minimizing civilian deaths. This is like the person who came on about 6 or 8 months ago, and I lost my mind and said, oh, you just need more dead children in Gaza to call it a genocide. Are you serious? So I don't need anyone to be related to me to be dying to know that civilian deaths are wrong. I don't need to sit on a soapbox and make the claim that everybody else knows is true. The real question is the elephant in the room. Who is cheering this? Who is not faced with the facts that when we live in a highly technological society where we can literally get updates about the war as it happens thanks to social media, that we don't see it and go, oh my God, that is awful. This is a horrible carnage. The fact of the matter is every single war is like this, and the reason you don't think about the other wars like this is because you don't have the technological exposure. Walter Cronkite manipulated the American people to turn against the Vietnam War, which America was winning, because he had the television cameras and the crews showing the horrible scenes in the Vietnam War. I am not saying that was okay. War is never okay. Everybody knew that. The ancient Greeks knew it. The ancient Buddhists knew it. Everybody knows what war is, but everybody also has always operated that war is probably going to happen at some point. And it's, who are you fighting for? Are you fighting for the good guys, or the better guys, I should say, or are you fighting for the evil? And I'm not saying that oh my gosh, there's all the good guys always win. The good guys are my people. No, I am saying that if I am sitting in a room and I have to choose between Churchill and Hitler, I'm going to choose Churchill. And that shouldn't be controversial to say. I know enough about history to know that. So how dare you, a friendly neighborhood historian, say that I am minimizing civilian deaths? I don't even know how to explain that. What do you want me to do about it? Yes, civilians die in war, and it is awful. And if you look at every proportional metric, civilians die at faster rates than their opponents, than belligerents, than militants in war. And civilians are used as human shields, and civilians are used as bargaining chips and manipulative tactics in war over and over again. The U.S. killed civilians in Iraq, but not at the same rate that the Iraqi government of Saddam Hussein killed them. This is all true. Civilians die in war in heavy numbers, usually heavier than the militants among them. And when you have a civilian population that is crawling with militants who are dressed in civilian clothes, the distinctions become a lot harder to make out. You can't equate our involvement today to fighting literal Nazis. I am not equating involvement. You do not understand what I am saying. Tucker Carlson, and I'm looking at it from a historical perspective, has questioned the morality of the Americans fighting the last World War. And of course, he will do the plausible, well, I didn't do that. I just had someone on who had some questions. I have seen the man interview the president of Iran and throw softballs, and then go after an American senator who defends Israel with, hydrogen bombs. Okay, oh, we're not equals. Okay, you're a narcissist. Got it. Good day, sir. I'm sorry, this is my channel. I'm not saying that you're inferior to me. I'm saying that in the sense that you come onto my channel and ask me questions and talk to me, I have a certain level of expertise in historical matters. I'm going to be sharing about that. You and I are not equals in that regard. It's my channel, and I make the rules. There's really nothing narcissistic about that. If you have a channel, I would come onto your channel and show you respect. You didn't do that to me. So have a good day. I hope you're still here, Winston Smith. I hope you subscribed at least. Why does Tucker Carlson matter? Is he the acceptable face of Jew haters? Excuse me. Tucker Carlson is an interesting case because he went from being a neoconservative Republican who supported the war in Iraq to having so much guilt about a bad idea of regime change in the Middle East that he has become an isolationist. He represents a strange alternative right-wing perspective that glorifies isolationism at a rate, and Americans have not glorified isolationism in a long time. He represents a challenge to the post-war consensus for the last 80 years, where basically everybody has said, yeah, it's better if we're involved in foreign policy than we're not involved in foreign policy. He represents an outdated and antiquarian form of political engagement, and when he comments on historical matters, he proves to be nothing but completely ignorant. So interesting. Can you explain the difference between Persia and Iran? Persia is a region inside of Iran. The Aryan peoples, Indo-Aryan peoples that settled the region are the Persians. But Persia was not known as Iran until the 20th century. Iran is what I think the British called them that, or was it the French? The Persian, I think when I think of Persia, I think of the Achaemenid Persians, who are not Muslims. When I think of Iran, I think of the Muslim history and culture, the beauty of Islam that developed in Iran, in Persia, after the conquest of the Sassanid Persians in the 7th century by the Rashidun Caliphate. Again, the Parthians, the Sassanids, these were Zoroastrians. These were not Muslims. So when I think of Iran, I think of the geopolitical issues of the day, but I also think of an Islamic area of the world. When I think of Persia, I think of the Achaemenids. I think of Darius. I think of Gaugamela. I think of Alexander the Great. I think of them being the bane of a Greek existence for so long. So there you go. All right, what did Faraz say? Because I want to see. Yeah. So are the people of Iran and Iraq different races? I don't know how different they are. They are definitely connected to some extent. In Fallujah, why were there insurgents yelling vengeance for crusades at the U.S.? Because radical Islam has not forgotten about the crusades taking back land that was originally taken by the Muslims. No matter violent, radical, militant Islam, no matter where it is, if it's conquering, oppressing, or simply reconquering areas that it had lost itself, whatever it's doing, it believes that it is the victim. It believes it is fully justified to behave in these categories. Go and read my Substack, Jason, on the Hijra, on Muhammad's flight from Mecca, which didn't exist when he was alive, by the way, to Medina. This Islamic legend basically is where I think there is a creation of a victim mentality in militant Islam, where no matter what they are doing, no matter how violent or oppressive they are being, they consider themselves to be the victims because that's what Muhammad was doing when he reconquered Mecca. Is the chat pro-war or against war? I'm not for war. I don't think anyone is for killing people. It would be amazing if nobody, like this, the Tucker Carlson thing reminds me of well, if we would just take away guns and give everybody, put a flower inside of a gun barrel. The world doesn't work this way, folks. It's nice, it's beautiful to think about. We should all strive for it, I guess, but I know too much about history. Kellogg-Briand, Astrad Briand won the Nobel Peace Prize for banning war. They made war illegal in 1926. How'd that work out for them? So, yeah, I just, King Doopy, it's just incredible to me the way these people misinterpret what I am saying. The best war is the one that's not fought, Sun Tzu. That's a great quote. I'm not political, I'm just a student of geopolitics. Well, you'll like this channel then. Hitler hated tobacco and alcohol. Churchill was once rumored to have some blood on his alcohol system. Why did you delete that? That's a great comment. Dying from death is a horrible way to go. Yeah, but Jared, we've forgotten that. We've forgotten that all people die. War isn't about right or wrong, good or bad. War is inevitability. Only losers argue semantics. Well, it is an inevitability, but do you inevitably want the Nazis to win, or do you inevitably want the United States to win? I don't care about, oh, we shouldn't have had that war in the first place. That doesn't matter. What matters is when the war does happen, who do you want to win? Because horrible things are going to happen either way. And there's one way to guarantee less horrible things happening. And yeah, please, if you're going to bring up the geopolitics of today, give a super chat. I am not a wannabe politician. Did somebody say, how did Trump impregnate Melania when he was over 60? Because men are able to impregnate women at that age? Are you stupid? Could you recall any eyewitness writings by known authors for the miracle claims of Jesus? You mean the Gospels? So we went from the geopolitics issue to the mythicist issue, which everyone in the chat is obsessed with. So the Gospels obviously record miracle happenings of Jesus of Nazareth, which means we immediately, in our modern context, dismiss them because there's no way that a historical record could ever include miraculous intervention from the gods. Oh, wait, that's what Thucydides and Herodotus did. Every history of that era would have some sort of incredible activity from the gods. The New Testament is no different in doing this. I am not saying Jesus performed miracles. I am saying the gospel writers are not unhinged for writing about Jesus performing miracles. It would make sense for their God to perform miracles because that's what gods do. We will never know for sure too far down the timeline. What is the Wilmot Proviso? Oh, good question, Fiona. The Wilmot Proviso, if we can get away, was after the war of the Mexican-American War in 1848. The Americans needed to decide what to do with the new western territories of the Southwest and California. California was right between the 3630 parallel, the Missouri Compromise, so that meant that the state could be divided into a southern area that would be pro-slavery and a northern area that would be pro-free. And the Compromise of 1850 basically allowed California to become a free state. But the Wilmot Proviso, proposed by Senator David Wilmot, basically said that all the new Western territories would be free states, no matter what. The Democrats in the South obviously were heavily against this, and it didn't come to fruition. But it was the first major anti-slavery legislation push after the Mexican-American War, and it wouldn't be the last one leading up to and including the 13th Amendment at the end of the Civil War. Tell me if you agree or disagree with my understanding, Friendly History. We live in the Neo-Cold War era. The divide isn't iron but hyper. It's radicalism, New East versus libertarianism, New West. Kind of. I don't know. There's so many different... It's hard to be reductive about this. The competitions in technology, the competitions in ideology, the competitions in belief are so more nuanced than they were during the Cold War. You've got China and its technological advancement, its geopolitical acquisitions. You have Russia and its neo-imperialism. You have radical Islam versus the West, which is kind of drunk off of its own power going back from the end of the Cold War. I don't see the West as libertarian necessarily. Let me see here. Other questions. How would you help me as a Muslim? Why did we delete these comments? How would I help you as a Muslim? I would encourage you to learn the history of your religion and learn the history of the other world religions and learn the history of the world, of the area of the world where Islam has been predominant, because that's what's really beautiful, is the history that religion and history go hand in hand. You can't have a culture developing in time and space, which is history, without religion, without something unifying them. So Shadow, that's what I would do. Stop deleting all these comments, by the way. Can we hear more history about the radical Jews and the victim mentality they had? Could you elaborate on that? Thank you. No, I will not elaborate on that. Go back and watch my live stream lecture from last week. Hars, put that in the chat, because people want to talk about the issue surrounding Jews. I'm not game to talk about that anymore. I'm sorry, guys. I've moved on. So, what do you mean? What is he going to do to help you? He's talking about history. Learning history can help people. Can we talk about James Polk again? This chat has really become polarized, and I'm feeling nostalgic. James Polk is a very polarizing topic. I mean, one of the most successful U.S. presidents who gained more land for the U.S. than any other president before him, other than Thomas Jefferson, who got the United States, the Northwest, as well as California and the Southwest, fought one of the most successful wars in American history, is a bad guy, apparently. I'm sorry. I just grew up thinking that he's the best one-term president in U.S. history, which, by the way, he is. Other than George Bush Sr., there's really no one that comes close to him. I apologize if I made you mad, but since I'm worried about my family, I get sensitive and I get angry really easily. Well, I'm sorry, but just because you get angry really easily doesn't mean you get to call into question my moral fiber. I don't have to have civilians who are related to me dying or in danger to not understand the weight of civilian deaths. There is something horrid and awful about it, no matter who I'm related to. Because they could be my son or my daughter or my brother or my sister, my wife, my parents, or they could be me. So, no, you don't get to, oh, I'm mad, so I'm going to make you mad. No, no. Go rage bait yourself. Friendly Abrahamson channel, for goodness sake. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are made up names given by the church. They are unknown. So, okay. They are not unknown. Those are anglicized versions of Hebrew names, like, although Luke is a Greek, according to Christian history. The way it basically works is two of them were direct apostles of Jesus. One of them was writing on behalf of another apostle, and a third one was a disciple of St. Paul. And these men all wrote probably within 60 years at most of Jesus' life, which is extremely good considering how close to the events it actually happened. You also have the historical and textual record of it, which comes in, the earliest copies of these writings come within a century of them happening, which is unheard of in the ancient world. So veritas, somebody whose name means truth, you should probably look into that because everything I just said is true. This isn't a defense of Christianity. This isn't saying Jesus rose from the dead. I am stating specific historical facts. It is unfair of mythicists and others who critique the New Testament to not understand that New Testament literature, including the book of Revelation, is... Are we back yet? Okay, we are finally back. What happened? Well, my phone overheated, so... You're in a room without a fan and a heat wave, and that's what's going to happen. So I overheated, but I'm back now. Let me see here. So I want to go back. I was answering the question about, I don't know what the last thing you heard, but somebody was saying something about the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are made up. People who constantly go over this issue do not understand that the mythicists do not understand that the same categories of historical record, textual evidence, date of writing versus date of occurrence is really, really strong to suggest, is really, really strong for Jesus of Nazareth compared to most other historical figures, religious and historical texts of the time. The date of the writing compared to the date of the events, the textual evidence, as well as the fact that the writings of the New Testament are not so different in the way they appreciate and display Jesus as compared to the writings of the ancient Greeks, even if they are and they're considered to be writing histories. So, and none of them were in fact eyewitnesses to Jesus' resurrection. You see, this is the problem with this argument. I never said Jesus rose from the dead, but that's really, I mean, John and Matthew at the very least are considered by almost all traditional scholarship to be apostles who did see him rise from the dead. And Mark is supposedly writing down the story and the narrative of St. Peter. So according to the traditional understanding, yeah, they were. But that doesn't matter, even if they weren't. St. Paul is writing 20 years after Jesus dies, and he's claiming the resurrection. I'm not saying that makes the resurrection happen. I'm saying that there is a strong amount of people attesting to the life and death of Jesus of Nazareth in the first century, and the impact of his message creating a religion that spreads like wildfire throughout the Roman Empire. And that is almost completely historically verifiable from every outside secular and interreligious source. And if you judge the interreligious sources, well, you're going to have to judge almost all of ancient historical writings by that metric. And if you judge the external sources and say, well, they were doing this or that, that's conspiratorial. Josephus and Tacitus had no reason to write in favor glazing the Christians, yet they wrote. So their writings depict that there was this man named Jesus, and was he the Messiah? Probably not, but at the very least he lived. The mythicist argument doesn't make any sense to me, and it never has, because there are Mohammedan mythicists. I'm not one of them. I'm close, but I'm not one of them. I don't see mythicism for Buddha. I don't see a large movement of scholarship devoted completely to proving that Buddha didn't exist. There's far less attestation to the existence of Siddhartha, who lived 600 years before Jesus. Yet I think most people just assume he lived. And why not? It makes sense to me. Okay, this is my question. Until 20th century, each country had their own traditional clothing. What happened? What does that say about culture in the world? Influence of the West on fashion and culture. That's what it says. What credibility do you give to the theory that Nero purposely started the Great Roman Fire? I think it's possible. I don't think that it's verifiable, but I think it's possible. Do you find any interest in traditional clothing? Yeah, it's fun to look at sometimes. Sometimes we don't really know the real history. Well, that's true, but we have archaeology, we have primary sources, we have history from below. We have more opportunity to learn the actual history today than ever before. Based on your knowledge of history, where does this current timeline lead up? World War III, the end of, or ends? I don't know. I think there's already been a World War III, so. Though they weren't the first horse archer culture, why do you think the Mongolian conquests were so successful? What made them better than the Scythians? Was its leadership. Its leadership, its unity, and it is fighting men ready to conquer. Temujin believed he had a mandate from the god. I forget the name of the god. It was the god of the sky in the Mongolian traditional religion, to conquer or else. It was basically a holy war in some ways. Notice how he says radical Islam, but he doesn't say radical Zionist Judaism. Well, nobody's asking questions about radical Zionist Judaism. There are certainly radical Zionist Jews. There are certainly radical Christians. Yeah, it's this, well, you have to bring up these people if you're going to bring up those people. No, I don't. And radical Zionists do not want to cut my head off. And if you don't believe that I think that is the case for radical Muslims, look at any of my videos on the history of Mecca in the 7th century. Look at how the Muslims respond in the chat. And that's just by me questioning the historicity of their religion. And these are not radicals as far as I know. So there are plenty of radical Jews and there are plenty of radical Muslims. But you, of course, don't see in those categories because you don't care. Please repeat what I should read to learn when Muhammad reconquered Islam. Muhammad, you mean reconquered Mecca? Well, that's the Hijra. That's the ancient account. The Hadiths tell a lot of this. The Quran is going to tell this story. The historical evidence for it happening? Don't know. There really isn't any. John of Damascus, a Christian writer, attests to an Arabic general conquering areas, and the Muslims are quick to say that's Muhammad. Basically, if you're going to believe any of the traditional narratives of the Islamic conquest during the time of Muhammad's life, you're going to have to accept the most lenient position and accept all of Islamic scholarship. That's basically how it works. The history of Islam is not beautiful. By far the most oppressive and violent religion. That's not true. There's plenty of beauty in Islam. There's plenty of brutality in Christianity. And you see, these are categories. These are consistencies. I'm going to speak in them. Was Woodrow Wilson really a Jew? Oh, for goodness sakes. People think that that probably condoned the temple attacks. Yeah. Was Lincoln against Polk's expansionism? No, Lincoln was a Jacksonian. The Jacksonian Democrats believe in the expansion of land and U.S. exceptionalism. I don't think Lincoln for a second denied that. So happy to see you too, Malady. I don't know enough about St. Denis. Which books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John were signed or could be known by a name? The church footnotes then saying they made the name up themselves. The church doesn't say that. Two of the earliest attestations are to writers who would have known Jesus directly, and two of them are to people who would have known him, people who knew him directly. I'm sorry, but this is the best you're going to do for any historical text from the ancient world. I mean, what is your point, Veritas? Jesus didn't rise from the dead? I didn't make that claim. This is a history channel. I don't talk about superstition and religion. If you want my opinion, like a historical opinion about the resurrection of Christ, I can give you one if you give me a super chat. Okay, we got through the buffering. Now let's go on to the rest. Only heat wave is in the western U.S. Well, other places are hot too. The room I'm in is also very hot, and there's no air conditioning in it. Okay, let's see. I'm going to keep going. Oh, we got a super chat from King. Thank you, King. Really appreciate it. But the Bible is subjective. Well, every text is subjective. Why do you have to bring that up? What do you want me to say? The Bible is not subjective? Yeah, it certainly is. Barely any accounts written of the resurrection. I mean, you have the New Testament. This is the claim that Christians have been making for 2,000 years, and it's the most audacious of all the claims that they have. I'm not debating the historicity of that. I'm a historian. I have to talk about history. One of your mods keeps on permanently banning me just because I'm asking questions. He doesn't like what I'm saying because it triggers him. Truth, by the way, I'm Jewish. Well, Mr. Bill, I don't care what you are. You're not going to be disrespectful to my moderators. Michael de Rothschild from Israel. Oh, great. I was chill. I'm asking questions. I'm not being rude. I'm not being hateful. I'm asking questions. That's all I'm here to learn. Yes, the Tucker Carlson. I'm just asking questions. Yes, the questions come with a loaded gun next to them. Why do you think it's so, no matter what religion or ethnicity, that power eventually corrupts everybody? Because religion is not the issue. Politics is not the issue. It's power. It's what power can do to you. It's control. How old is Iran? Depends what you mean. Iran as a concept, the Indo-Aryan people are ancient. The nation of Iran, what it's called Iran, has been in the last century, really. And before that, you have a series of Persian empires in the land that is now Iran that goes back thousands of years. So do you think Rome fell to many foreigners, or is that just something we were told? I think that's a right-wing slant on the issue. I think there are so many issues as to why Rome fell. Barbarian invasions, inability to pay their troops, inability to have proper birth rates to replace their armies, struggling to deal with what foreign invaders they did allow to settle in their lands, basically paying them to fight in their army because they didn't have enough Romans. A weakening of the culture because of a change that was focused more on the pacifism of Christianity than on the militarism of the Romans. There's a bunch of different things that go into it. Corruption and greed, poor rulers, all of it. Let me see. What was Da Vinci's Code? It's something that was supposedly written that was put in Da Vinci's paintings and writings that blah, 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 blah is a bunch of stupid nonsense that's just totally ahistorical. If you want to ask a question, crack on, but please do it about history. Yes, please. Now people say that Christ Jesus is the only way, or Allah is the only way. Is that like comparing what's better, Chinese food or Japanese food, or pizza and hamburgers? Is it a matter of taste? It certainly can be based on your proclivities and experiences. I can't really answer that without making a judgment about which religion is better, or which religion is truer. And I don't do that. Friendly history should defend his mods, but not. Oh, for goodness sakes, I'm tired of this. What did Romans think about homosexuality? Many Romans were very open to it. They're seen as less into it than the Greeks, but that's not saying much. Homosexuality, gay marriage, relationships between emperors and young men, men who were probably early 20s, was quite common. The idea of the older male having a relationship that was physical as well as intellectual with a younger male who was just starting off was common in ancient Greece, and it carried over to the Romans, who were very interested in Greek culture and behavior. What led to Persia's ultimate demise? European influence, the continual fights with the Ottomans, and the incursions of the Russians and the British during the Great Game, which I wrote my master's thesis on during the 19th century. Basically, Russia and Britain tried to use Afghanistan and Iran against each other. Was there incest? Yes, there was a lot of incest in the Roman world, but more so in the higher echelons of society. And this goes back to the ancient idea that people of blue bloods are better off. People who are nobles, if they marry into a noble family, they will produce noble children. So nobles should marry nobles, and royals should marry each other because they have better genes and are better than non-royals. I've always supported this channel. That's why I subscribe. So yeah, give Mr. Bill some credit. Anyways, other questions about history and social studies. And it's still happening in Iran and the Middle East, right? Not to the extent that you think. But the idea of blue bloods, people marrying outside of their class, I mean, this is Pride and Prejudice. This is most of the literature, the Romantic literature of the 19th century. It's still based on this concept that people, of an old sociological concept that exists in almost every civilization. It's one of those things that unites us all as humans, whether we're Chinese, Iranian, or English, is the idea that certain people are better and predisposed to more success in life because of their background, because they are related to someone who was once a great ruler or something like that, which is what nobility basically is. Friendly history. What strengths do I have over Harry, and what strengths does Harry have over me? Harry does not constantly insult people he disagrees with. You have more patience than Harry does. There you go. If we take let me see. If we take this idea that there was Adam and Eve first, and then they had children, then what did that mean? There was incest. Yeah, that's generally the interpretation of the biblical narrative at the beginning. Marrying cousins is still common. I think Florida just downvoted a law that would have banned the marriage of first cousins. Is Turkey guilty of genocide towards the Kurds? Turkey's guilty of a lot of things. I don't know about the Kurds, but the Kurds have definitely been one of their whipping posts. Are you familiar with Andrew Jackson's specious circular? No. Is that how he defrocked the Bank of the United States and basically ruined the economy? What you have to say on this? Where is Myanmar and India border? Total 9 Ukrainians and 1 American got arrested for going to places. I don't know enough about that, Darshan. If you want to talk about geopolitics, give me a super chat. So, anyways, we got about 10 minutes left. I've caught up to the chat. So what else do we want to talk about? Is the war in the Middle East never ending? 1 to 10. An 8. Last year I thought it would have been a 6 or a 7. Literally a 6 or a 7. And not just because it was 2025, but the inability of the United States to control itself in Iran has made things worse. I don't know about that, Derek. Where is the ancient Kurdish homeland? In between Iraq, Afghanistan, in between Iraq, Iran, and it's a strip of land that goes from Syria through Iraq and into Iran. When you talk about Turks, there is at least a Turk in here. I love the Turks. I love talking about the Ottoman Empire. I'm not going to apologize for it. The Turks should apologize for genociding millions of people, but they haven't done that. That is a hot take. Why do they not eat pork in Islam? The halal laws of Islam seem to be a derivative in many ways of the kosher laws of Judaism. You should not eat things that can be extraordinarily dangerous to your health if they are not properly cured and cleaned. They didn't have the cleaning of food that we have nowadays, so these laws actually make sense to a community living 3,000 years ago with technology that is extraordinarily limited, including the purging and cleaning of different types of meat and sea creatures. What was the War of Pigs about? I'm trying to remember. I don't know off the top of my head. Somebody asked about the Lobster War. I don't know about all of these niche little wars. I know about the Emu War. Australia basically decided to kill off a bunch of emus, and then they just decided that killing off the emus was inhumane, so the emus won after a couple of months. 1932. Other questions about history and social studies. We've got about 5 minutes left. We go an hour today. We'll be back tomorrow for another hour at 3 p.m. Eastern. Bay of Pigs, Bios de Cochinos, one of the worst disasters in American history in sense of helping an ally overthrow an enemy. What about the War of Jenkins' Ear? Don't know about it. Vegan history says human beings should not eat animals, be they are sentient beings, but given logic, do vegans destroy billions of insect colonies to gather vegetables? Yeah. If you kill off a lot of plants, you are going to undermine the ecosystem. I mean, plants scream when you pull them out of the ground. Are you on about the Bay of Pigs wars between the U.S. and Britain? No, I'm talking about the Bay of Pigs. How the U.S. could have really saved themselves a lot of headache in Latin America and just didn't do it. Because they were worried that the communists in Russia would be mad about this. Then a year later, the communists in Russia put nuclear missiles in Cuba. You seem to base your knowledge not on the source. And Steve, you seem to make really, really aggressive, passive-aggressive comments that don't help anyone. And therefore, they solely had the rights to fish for them in their waters, while the French said that the loose lobsters are fish. Sounds about right. The lobster war was between France and Brazil because Brazil said the lobsters were part of their continental shelf, while the French said they were in waters. Lovely. When was that, by the way, Harry? And yeah, everybody loves a good steak. But I do prefer seafood, actually. It's healthier for you. Yeah, carrot plants scream when you pull them out of the ground. You didn't know this? They ooze a chemical to let the other plants know that they are being, murdered, basically. Ancient leaders should be out. Trump, Putin, Erdogan, etc. Yeah, a regime change, that might be necessary. I do not like Beyond Meat, but it's very disrespectful to meat. Sure. And therefore would have a right to fish in a more broad way than if they were part of the continental shelf. So President Charles decided to send a massive fleet to intimidate Brazil, but the fleet did nothing and nothing really happened. Boring. Who is Mahatma Gandhi? Mahatma is a title. Mohandas was his first name. Mahatma means, I think, the enlightened one or the highly revered one. Gandhi was a spiritual leader who had an education in Europe, was a very civilized Indian by the outward appearances of the Europeans, and was committed to changing the Indian National Congress and the efforts of the Indians to achieve independence from the British. Up until that point, they had been extraordinarily aggressive, leading to violent uprisings that had not gained any attention but other than savage oppression and suppression by the British forces. Gandhi redirected the message to be much more about nonviolence, civil disobedience, political organization, and by a series of hunger strikes, religious purification, and emphasizing the unity of all things and all beings. Gandhi was basically able to convince the British government through peaceful means that India was worthy of independence. What question did I not answer? I don't want to answer any more questions from you. They had like a 3-year legal battle over whether lobsters were a fish or not. It's incredible considering what was going on. Well, they're not. Well, they were being very shellfish, if you ask me. What question didn't I answer, Hars? Oh, hello, Mac. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. We're just at the end, though. We usually start just after 6 o'clock on Fridays, and we're starting tomorrow just after 3 o'clock. So it's an earlier start on Saturdays, and then Sunday it's in the middle at 4 p.m. Eastern, where I do my live stream lecture this week on communism in Asia. Please join us for that. Was it bad when Polk chose a side on the debate of slavery after he started an accidental war which he didn't intend to scale for? Yes, the war that he won? Yeah, no, it wasn't bad at all. And Polk did not start the war over slavery. Polk started the war to make Texas bigger. Will you be making homosexual ham party again this evening like yesterday, please? Oh, no, Mac, I'm tired. What was that army of porcelain prize soldier that Chinese emperor had? Emperor Qin Shi Huang, or Shi Huangdi, the great ruler who was the first real emperor of China, started the Qin dynasty. We end this live stream talking about what we were talking about at the beginning with my Japanese plate armor in the background of a samurai. Emperor Qin Shi Huang basically believed that he needed to be guarded in the afterlife. And so, being a brutal emperor, worried about being desecrated and attacked when he was dead, demanded that an army of men be buried alive next to him to protect him. The architects of his tomb decided this was a bad idea because murdering is bad, and so they made up a series of clay terracotta. They're not porcelain, they're terracotta soldiers that was discovered in the 1970s, and that is the grave of the great Shi Huangdi. What do you think of the Cod Wars? Again, I don't know about all of these dumb fish wars. What happened to the Brits living in India when it gained independence? Some of them left, some of them stayed. There was post-colonial relations to deal with. Also, did you see my new Cold War and MacArthur edits? No, but I will check them out, and everyone should check out Hars's channel. That is samurai armor, being very Japanese today. Although everyone wants to talk about China. What the article in the Treaty of Tripoli that says America was in no sense founded as a Christian nation means? Seems like in a contradiction with the Christian founders and settlers. Well, it's saying that no Christian denomination is responsible for the United States. The United States is made up of non-denominational, non-affiliated. It is not a religious state. It's a political state. It was founded mainly by people with at least some semblance of a Christian worldview, but were not committed. Remember, Jefferson was in charge of this. He's one of the more secular of the founding fathers. The war against the Barbary pirates in the early 1800s. Basically, this statement is a reaffirmation that America is not an overtly religious state. That doesn't mean that it's not a state full of religious people. Now here, there's 3 different types of societies that still control the world in the sense of Illuminati, American Masons, the United States, and their names. And Israel, what are they called? I don't know, and I don't care. Does the Pope have the political backing and will to stop a war? Has the Pope ever stopped a conflict? People would argue that according to legend, Pope Leo the Great, or Leo the First, I think, stopped Attila the Hun from conquering and destroying the Romans in 455 when he was about to attack Rome. Yeah, I don't know if we're going to find their graves. Does the school you got your MA offer a PhD? No. How long did the Indus Valley civilization thrive? Probably about 1,000 years, but this was a series of different city-states in different areas. It's not one united civilization like ancient Egypt. Where would I live in an old society? England, Tudor England would be awesome. Why is there a Bible Belt in America? Hyper-religious people usually have Southern Baptist organizations. Sorry, not the United Kingdom. The Pope and the Vatican, they're the other Illuminati. Yeah, sure, whatever. All right, I'm 63 minutes in. I went over just to answer all of your questions, a few minutes though. Tomorrow I'll be back at 3 p.m. Eastern to answer more questions about history or social studies. Why are there so many different sects of Bible communities? People can't agree on anything. Religious freedom leads to religious dissent. And there's far more Christian denominations now than there were 500 years ago, and a huge reason for that is a growing idea of religious toleration. As you have the Protestant Reformation and the delineation and promulgation of different religious and theological ideas within the Christian church, you eventually have the idea that killing each other over this is going to make Christians basically go extinct if they don't stop it. That's what the Peace of Westphalia, the Augsburg Confession, and other things like that did in the 16th and 17th centuries. Doesn't matter if Polk won the war. His entire presidency, he was polarizing because he chose a side. Why wasn't he like Millard Fillmore to preserve the Union? Had to please Democrat leaders. Millard Fillmore is a disaster who helped cause the Civil War. James K. Polk is a president who completed Sea to Shining Sea. Pick your poison. I'll take Polk over Fillmore any day. If you could meet one historical person, who would you meet? Napoleon. Go watch my video on him. Hars, please put the video to the live stream lecture from last weekend and my video to Napoleon in the chat, because I've been answering that. I've been asking for that all day, and unlike you, I actually answer my questions. Did the U.S. really destabilize Yugoslavia over the bogus space program? Yep. Was Alexander actually defeated in modern-day Punjab? Basically, he was defeated. He could have kept going. His soldiers mutinied, and he went home. Do you think, given the current World War III escalations going on as we speak, that the world is headed in the next few days, weeks, months into further chaos? No. I just don't. I just think that the scale of nuclear weapons and the scale of the previous world wars and the efforts at deterrent from other world wars is going to prevent another world war in the near future. So, there you go. I don't know how long this thing is going to go on in Iran. I really have no clue. So, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you all for joining me. Harsh didn't put the links in the chat because he didn't listen, but that's okay, I guess. I guess he just didn't want to or he didn't have the time. But please go check out his channel to see all of his good presidential U.S. edits and stuff like that. I will be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. We probably will not have overheating on my phone because I'll have a fan in here or something like that. But yeah, and there's my Napoleon video. So if you want to learn more about Napoleon, please check that out. Did I really misspell Napoleon? That's ridiculous. And Mr. Bill, I suggest you watch the live stream lecture because even if you don't like it, at least it gives a pretty definitive answer to most of the things you are discussing. I do my best. Shout out to my moderators, Harsh, Freshly, Rodolfo, and Harry, who were here, who helped hold down the chat and do the usual great stuff that they did. And yes, I hope you all take care. Like and subscribe on your way out. Consider becoming a member for all the extra perks it gets you. And I hope you all have a great rest of your evening and enjoy your weekend. And I'll see you tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern. Continue your weekend with a Friendly Neighborhood History channel. And as always, love history. Bye-bye, everybody.